Good afternoon, members, officers and guests. Good afternoon, members, officers and guests. I formally open this annual meeting of the North East Derbyshire District Council, held on Monday the 19th of May 2025. I would like to welcome everyone present, both in the chamber and those joining us online. Before I move to agenda item 1, I'd just like to say a few words at the end of my year in office. This year has been a bit of a roller coaster of a ride. Jerry Morley, the Claycross Councillor, was installed, as most of you know, as chairman of the council at the annual meeting on the 20th of May last year. But sadly, within 2 weeks, he was taken into hospital. He remained in hospital for several weeks and tragically died on the 13th of July. It was a great loss to the council. So as vice chairman, I stood in for Jerry roughly from the start of last year. And then I came to take office formally on the 23rd of September, the meeting of 23rd of September. It has been a great privilege to represent North East Derbyshire District Council this year as chairman. I concentrated my efforts on getting round as many parishes and local groups as possible. I felt I was there to represent the council and to let the residents know that North East Derbyshire District Council is here for them. I must say a heartfelt thanks to all the local volunteers for their unstinting commitment to helping others. They do a really fantastic job. I must also give thanks to the governance team, in particular Tina and Amy, and to the senior management team, including the enthusiastic turnout for my charity car wash last week. I think they've all recovered, hopefully. I also need to thank the Vice Chairman, Graham Baxter, for supporting me and standing in for me when I couldn't make it. And I'd also like to thank the wonderful caretakers, Kevin, Paul and Paddy, for their valuable assistance throughout the year. From taking the office of chair on September the 23rd, I've raised approximately £1,600, and as Jerry would have wanted, this money is going out to the local groups and the voluntary organisations via the council's community grant scheme. I'm going to say thanks once again to everybody who's helped me and supported me in the last year. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 1 on the agenda, which is the election of chair of the council for the 2025-26 municipal year. I invite nominations for the position of chair. Are there any nominations from the floor?
I'd like to nominate Lee Hartshorn.
Thank you. Lee Hartshorn's been nominated.
Can I second that, please?
Thank you, that's been seconded. Are there any other nominations? If not, thanks very much, and I declare Lee Hartshorn, Councillor Lee Hartshorn, duly elected as chair of the council for the coming year. Congratulations, Lee.
I left my pen. Right, the members. Well, firstly, I must admit I never expected or imagined ascending to the role of chair of this council. In part, this has been due to the untimely passing of Councillor Jerry Morley, as Christine has mentioned earlier. Jerry had a long history of service on this council, representing his own town of Claycross for many years. Following the passing of Jerry Morley, Councillor Christine Smith stepped from the vice chair position into the role of chair, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank Christine for rising to the task and congratulate her on a successful year. At this point,
Where's the dog?
I'll just let Christine put her flowers down. I must also like to thank my colleagues in the Labour group. As when a volunteer for the role of chair was being sought, it appears that I was the only one left standing while my colleagues took one step backwards. While the circumstances may have been less than competitive, I want to assure you that I take this responsibility seriously and will endeavour to represent this council positively and with fairness in the year ahead. Lastly, I would like to thank Tina and Amy in advance, who will be working away in the background to assist me through the year. Now let's make it a productive and enjoyable year and move on to the main agenda. The first thing I'd like to ask you is item 3 on the agenda. Have any members got any thanks to express for the outgoing chair, Councillor Christine Smith? Councillor Barker.
I think it's Alex first.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. Really just to echo what's already been said, obviously it was a very significant loss with Councillor Morley, but Councillor Smith stepped up very ably to that role and attended lots of events throughout the year, supported lots of different community groups and really represented and championed the district very, very well. And she also chaired the meetings here in the chamber very fairly, I thought, and unbiasedly, and I think that was really a really strong, brilliant year as chair. Obviously not the year that it originally intended to be, but you did very, very well in the role, Christine. So thank you very much on behalf of the Conservative group for your year in service. And the fantastic funds as well raised for charity as well. Brilliant.
Councillor Barker?
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks Alex for that. And I just echo everything what's been said. I know Christine stepped into breach when Jerry got ill and subsequently passed away, so it weren't the best of circumstances, but a lot you've said, Christine did a good job, and I know chairing the meetings and things like that. I know initially your intention to be chair this year, to have a full year at it, but I think your personal circumstances have changed a bit, so she's decided not to take that up, and Lee's stepped into the role, and thanked him for that. So again, thank you, Christine, for last year, and well done, and I hope everything works out in the other thing.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Councillor Lacey.
Yeah, as a first-time councillor for North East Derbyshire, Christine has been my role model. She's shown me how things should be done, how things shouldn't be done, and she's always got a smile on her face, and I think she's been a great chair. So thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
All right, members, thank you for your comments. Can I ask that we now formally record our thanks to Councillor Smith for a year as chair? Can we do this by just a show of hands, please? Thank you, members. And thank you, Councillor Smith. Right, now move on to item 4, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies other than those already submitted? Oh, we have Councillor Joe Birkin, Councillor Mick Smith, Stuart Fawcett and Councillor Pam Windley. Are there any others?
Yes, Councillor Daniel Higgin.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Lacey. Councillor Dale.
Councillor Cupit, Councillor Tate and Councillor Emmons from our group, please.
Councillor Shipman. Councillor Mygrove as well, please, Chair. Thank you, members. Item 5 on the agenda, declaration of interest. Are there any declarations from members in respect of any items on today's agenda? Thank you very much. Right, item 6 on the agenda, minutes of the last meeting. We now have the minutes of our meeting held on the 3rd of March 2025. Are members content to approve these are a correct record? Is there a mover?
I'll move them, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lacey. Seconded, Councillor Barry. Right, just by a show of hands. Thank you, members. Those minutes are agreed. Item 7 on the agenda, election of the Vice Chair of the Council. Having just elected me as Chair, it is now time for us to appoint the Vice Chair for the year. Do we have any nominations?
I would like to nominate Councillor Graham Baxter.
Thank you, Councillor Lacey. Seconder?
Can I second that?
Thank you, Councillor Barker. We have a motion that has been moved and seconded. Can we agree this by acclamation? Can we all just have a show of hands if we agree to that? Thank you very much, members. Item 8 on the agenda, composition of Cabinet. The next item is the composition of the Cabinet. These are the leaders' appointments, so I invite Councillor Nigel Barker to speak.
Thank you, Chair, and can I move as is that we keep the Cabinet as was in the last municipal year. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Barker. Item 9, proportionality of the Council and appointment to committee. Our next item is the appointment of the Council committees for the year ahead. A document has been placed on your desk with the nominations received so far. Are there any changes to take from the floor? If we can just have a quick show of hands to agree those nominations. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Dare.
Sorry, Chair. It was my fault. I wasn't quite clear that actually we now have substitutes for all of the scrutiny committees, and I hadn't listed them on our list. I'd asked Amy actually whether it would be possible to just nominate the entire Conservative group as standing subs on for all of those committees, because it'd be far easier to just pick from a broader pool if that's okay. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Barker.
Yeah, I was going to do the same. Ali. Yeah, Conservative, as many Conservatives as you want. Yeah. So we've got a bigger pot to pull from, as I say. So yeah, if we can do that. So I think as long as there's 24-hour notice, governance, who's coming, who's stepping down, and who's attending, is that okay? Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you, members. We do actually agree on something. Item 10, appointment of the Chair's Vice Chair and various committees for the year. The persons nominated are set out in the table that has been circulated. Are we happy to agree the nominations by acclamation? Yep, just have a show of hands on that. Thank you. Thank you, members. The next item is the schedule of meetings. This is a report, the monitoring officer. So is there anything you want to say, Sarah, before we ask to approve this?
No, Chair, it's as it is before you, as proposed. Thank you.
If we all agreed, just a quick show of hands, will be satisfactory. Thank you. Item 12. The next item is appointment to outside bodies. The proposed appointments have been circulated on your desk. Would the leader of the council like to say anything on this item? Councillor Barker?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just one change in the Derbyshire Police and Crime Panel. Councillor Gillett wants to come off that, so can I move that Councillor Jane Barry is the rep, and I'll be the substitute on that committee, because I was prior to. So with that change, I think the others have already been penciled in, haven't they? Cathy, changing those. Yeah. I'm happy with that. I can move those reps.
Right. Thank you for that, Councillor Barker. Can we just have a quick show of hands again if everyone's in agreement? Thank you, members. Those appointments are approved. Right. Item 13. The next report is the review of the Constitution. A link to it was included in the report. This is a report of the monitoring officer, so I'd like Sarah to briefly explain what changes have been made.
Thank you, Chair. As is usual, the Standards Committee has done a review of the Constitution. This year, this has been a light touch review, as a thorough review was done last year. The main changes relate to changes required as a result of the implementation of the Procurement Act 2023 in February this year. The contract procurement rules have been completely rewritten by the Section 151 officer and approved and recommended to you by the Standards Committee. This has had some consequential effects on the delegation scheme, which are shown in the amended draft of the Constitution. We've been through the Constitution in terms of admin errors, changes in legislation, changes in titles, etc. That has been done under my delegation completely separately, but just to assure you we have done that as well. If there are any questions? And I think Councillor Jane.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you for that, Sarah. Right. Well, Sheriff.
Yes, Chair, I don't propose to say much. As the monitoring officer said, most of the changes have been at the recommendation of officers to take account of statutory changes. So I don't propose to go through those, and if there are any questions on those, I would refer them back to the officers. But there are three sets of changes that do have a direct impact on members, so I will just outline those. Hopefully they're not too contentious. One deals with the substitute policy, which we've already referred to, and that allows the groups to send substitutes along to Standards and Licensing Committee. I'm very much in favour of that. I think it helps particularly the smaller groups, where if they only have one member and that person can't attend, that group's voice is left unheard, and I don't think that's helpful in terms of the working of the council. I think it's important that we work best when everybody's present, has their say, and takes part in the decision-making process, and provides some challenge both to the majority group and to what officers are saying as well. The second change deals with planning, and again, I'm hoping these aren't too contentious. One is to incorporate a legal change that's taken place following some, I think it's a High Court case, if not more senior, which states that at a planning committee meeting, if the decision isn't taken on the day and the decision is deferred to another day, then only those members who were present at the first part of that meeting can take part in the second part and vote. Because there is a requirement that they hear all the arguments put forward before making their mind up, and therefore that just replicates that. The second one is just to amend the wording. At the moment, when a decision is called in by a member, it says the member has to give planning reasons for making that request. the words planning reasons will be deleted if this motion is passed and replaced by the words material planning considerations. And again, that is to adopt best practice as recommended by the professional body that advises planners and planning committees. It's what members have been doing anyway. It just puts it into the constitution. Then the third one is just to make clear that when a motion is put forward for debate, the motion should only have one topic in it and not multiple topics. That will give a much more focused debate and make it clear for council as to what it is voting on and being asked to do, and to limit the motion to 300 words. I think that I don't think it's been a major problem here, but again, if you can't say in 300 words, just in the words of the motion, plus what you say at the meeting, then it becomes a bit unwieldy. So they are the only changes that will directly affect members in the operation of the council.
Thank you for that, Councillor Gillett. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say, I think 99% of the changes I would fully support, particularly the planning ones. They're all very sensible and, as you say, comply with legislation. It's in relation to the motions change in terms of limiting them to one topic and being no longer than 300 words. And I say this as a member who, one of my motions has been called by another member to be I think he used the expression, it was a bowl of spaghetti slapped up against a wall. So I'm not sure whether the intended change here was to address my motions in particular, but I would say that I am slightly concerned that around the one topic rule, who is the judge of what that topic is? You know, who is it? The chair? Is it the monitoring officer? How do we ensure that we don't end up blocking a motion that has two related topics, covered in them? And I do think the 300 words, it'd be interesting to know whether that includes the preamble to the motion. Sometimes, there is a requirement to set a scene, to explain the background to a subject, and 300 words potentially feels a little bit too limited in that respect.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. I'm just going to bring in Sarah Sternberg to reply to you on that.
On the first one, it would be my view that counted. I would look at it. But be assured, I tend to find other opinions from the head of paid service, for example, if there is a difficulty. So it's not just my judgment if I'm finding it hard. So, yeah, it's down to me. The second one, 300 words was picked by the Standards Committee. You do have 10 minutes in proposing a motion. So it is your motion as written plus the 10 minutes explaining it.
Satisfactory answer, Councillor Dale?
Chair, if I can just come back.
Yeah.
And just to reassure opposition members that there is no desire here or any attempt by the majority group to limit what you say. We would have no say in whether the motion gets on the agenda or not. It would be purely the discussions between you and the monitoring officer. And that's basically what happens anyway with any motions. This is not an attempt to limit or restrict what the opposition groups put forward. It's just to make sure that the motion that is put forward is one that can be properly debated and voted upon, and that all members are clear in what you're asking for, and officers are clear in what they're then being told to do if the motion is passed.
Thank you, Councillor Shipman.
Yeah, it's similar to Councillor Dale, really. Had that bit not been in about the limiting the motion sizes and whatever topics they are, I would have supported these. But because it's yet another attack on councillors that sit on this council, on how they put their motions forward and in how many words it's got within it, I would much rather members put in words so I can read it leading up to a meeting what the motion is actually all about, than listening in this council chamber to someone waffling for 10 minutes. I would much rather be able to understand it, research the motion leading up to that the debate in the council chamber. So I actually think it's counterproductive if you're trying to reduce the spaghetti at the wall motions that we sometimes get in the council chamber. I actually think what you're going to end up with is just more people waffling about random rubbish instead of actually what the debate on the motion should be about. So unless we can actually take that bit out, I'll be voting against these changes for that reason, because I think it's, like I say, it's an attack on how councillors bring motions and debates to this council chamber, and I don't think the Standards Committee should be focusing on this when there's much more changes they probably could have done to the Constitution to aid and support councillors that sit on this council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shipman. Right, well, we have a proposal in front of us. Are you moving the motion, Councillor?
Mr Chair, I'll move the motion, the recommendation.
The recommendation. Do we have a seconder?
Can I propose that we remove that section out as an amendment? So the rest can stay, but that section... If someone will kindly second it.
You need the formal motion seconding first and then the amendment.
Right.
So you need to second her for the motion.
I'll
second it,
second the motion for the councillor.
Then you can take the amendment.
Right. We've got. Is there any amendments to that?
So
motion?
can I propose that we remove the changes to section 10.2, page 54 of the Constitution? So we just remove that bit, the rest can stay and as part of the substantive motion.
Councillor Weatherall.
What do I have to do? Just remind me, what do I have to do? Don't press anything. Okay. I just wanted to...
You seconding the amendment before?
No,
No.
no, sorry. I just wanted to
We
comment on...
we just needed a seconder for the
Right.
amendment.
Oh, no, not me.
Councillor Hancock seconded that motion. Right, now Councillor Weatherall.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I was just going to say that I support what you're saying about waffle, and what this was about was removing written waffle as well as verbal waffle. So actually I will be supporting it, and I think a focused motion is what's required. We have, I think, at times got ourselves into some difficulties because of the complexities of motions here. I think that this helps to focus minds. So I'll be supporting it and not an amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weatherall. Right, we're going to vote on the amendment. Is there any other speakers first? Councillor Thacker.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm just a little bit concerned to hear people's contributions described as waffle. I think that's quite offensive to members of council. Perhaps it's not meant, and maybe it's probably reference to the fact that some people take a little bit longer to get to a point than others, but I wouldn't describe it as waffle. Everybody's point is valid, whether we agree with it or we don't. And I think 300 words, perhaps focusing on a specific point that actually helps to frame a motion, to me sounds like a good idea. The whole point of having a chair is to help frame debate. And we have 10 minutes for a reason, and we have a chair that reminds us to stay on the path. So I think anything other is unnecessary, like the comments that are actually offensive to other members. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bird. Councillor Gillett.
Chair, just perhaps if I just respond, at the end of the day, motions to this council have consequences. They're actually asking for something to happen, and it needs to make it quite clear what that is, both in terms of us voting on it and then for the officers who have to then implement it. And that's the purpose of this, to make sure that a motion is clear, so that if it is passed, it is actually acted upon. A motion that is badly worded, that is unclear, can cause... Well, what is the point of bringing that other than as a debate at the end of the day? And that's not what we're here for. We're not here to have debate. We're here to take decisions and make a difference. And hopefully this will allow that to happen. Again, as I've said on previous occasions, if it causes problems, we will review it and change it. That's what I said last year. And at the Standards Committee, we did review the last year's changes. And the advice we got was that it hadn't caused, none of those changes last year had caused any problems. And the offer I made to everybody in this room is that if you were having concerns about the operation of it, to tell me, and that my committee would then review it. Nobody took me upon that offer, but again, I make it today. If this is causing problems, we will change it. But I don't see any harm in requiring members to be quite clear in what they're asking this council to do when they bring a motion to council.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Gillett. Right, does anybody else want to speak on this? No, right, we're going to take on a vote on the amendment proposed by Councillor Shipman.
Sorry, Chair, can you repeat what is the amendment?
We're voting on the amendment, yes. That's all right, Christine, I get two votes. Right, everybody happy with that? Right, that amendment has failed. Right, we now go back to the original motion, which was to accept the recommendation in the report. So can we take another vote on that, please?
Oh. Oh.
Yes. Yeah, we're voting on the main motion now, which was to accept the recommendation laid out in the report.
Hang on. What's happening?
Are we having trouble?
Pressed it was. Yes.
Yeah, right, I'm going to conclude it at that. Sorry? Yeah, Martin will apply this to the website, so it'll be there for everybody. Thank you, members. Item 14 on the agenda is a scheme of delegation for the year. I'm now going to hand you over to Sarah, who will run through the report.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, this is something the annual council is required specifically to approve in its rules. It is exactly the same as in the last item. The report gives details of what the delegation scheme covers, and there is a full copy attached. And as said in the previous report, main changes result from the Procurement Act coming into force and one or two other tidying up provisions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right, do I have a mover and a seconder?
Yeah, can I move those
Thank you,
recommendations?
Councillor Barker. Seconder, Councillor Barry. Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak on it? No. Right, can we have a vote on that then, please? We're just doing it by a show of hands, please. Thank you, members. Right, item 15. This is the last of the procedural items on today's agenda. Basically, council is required to set the thresholds of key decisions at this meeting. I'll now hand over to Sarah, who will introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. There are 3 items in this report which you are required to consider at your annual meeting. The first is a monitoring role in regard to the urgency provisions. These apply when a key decision which hasn't been on the forward plan and which is so urgent it cannot wait is considered within the 28 days notice required by the forward plan. So it's an exception. It's when something's exceptionally urgent and it's usually under 5 days. And I'm pleased to say we haven't had to use that in the past 12 months. The last part relates to the levels of the key decisions for capital and revenues. A thorough review of these was done last year by the Section 151 officer. We're not recommending any change, so we'd ask you to approve those as they are. The other part of this, the other rule covered, relates to cases where the scrutiny call-in has been removed as in relation to an item which again is so urgent that it couldn't afford to wait for a scrutiny call-in. And again, I'm pleased to say this has not been used in the last 12 months. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillor Barker.
Can I move those recommendations 1, 2 and 3 in the report, please?
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Barry. Do any members wish to speak on the item? No, if we can just have a show of hands then on that report. Thank you. Thank you, members. Right, we're now on to the last item. and I'm pleased to say that I have no urgent matters to so we now close the annual meeting, and with members' agreement we'll move straight on into the main agenda for the ordinary council meeting. Is everyone in agreement with that? Nobody needs a comfort break? Right, thank you. Right, the first item on the agenda is apologies for absence, which I presume will just be exactly the same as from the previous meeting. Secondly is declaration of interest, which has anybody got anything to declare? No, thank you. I have nothing to add following the for item 3, following the annual council. So I'm now going to invite the leader of the council for item 4, Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say I have been busy over the last couple of months, not least being involved with the county council elections that took place in beginning of May. And I think it's fair to say they could have gone a lot better than they did. But that's democracy, as we say, and I'm sure we'll respect the electorate's decision, and we'll work as best we can with the people that won that election. I have met with, as I do on a regular basis, I've met with the Police and Crime Commissioner. I did attend the District Council Network conference in Windsor that were interesting, and as you can imagine, the main topic was local government reorganisation. And on that, there's been loads of meetings and webinars leading up to that, and I know Lee's going to speak on it in the next item, so I'll not steal his thunder. But all I'd say on the matter is that the government are determined that this does happen. So like I've said before, I believe we need to engage with the process to ensure the people of North East Derbyshire continue to get the services that they'd expect and they need. On that, we have just noted the end of year performance report at Cabinet, which I've got to say reads really well. I'd recommend that anybody has a look at that, and it does highlight the amount of good work that is happening in the background by all the officers, and I know there's local government reform kicking about, but we are delivering against our council plan, I think, against all the 4 main objectives. I'll pick a couple out, but I think everybody needs to have a look. The housing strategy team have reduced the duration that homeless applicants spend in temporary accommodation, which means we're spending less on bed and breakfast. We continue to improve our housing stock with the help of Ricknold Homes. We've just got some more money from central government to carry on with the external wall stuff. Our community safety team continue to tackle antisocial behaviour, and they're working with police and other organisations. And I think it's fair to say that our team here has been highly respected. I get comments on a regular basis from the police and the community safety groups, how well our community safety team's doing. Similarly, on leisure services, we're going from strength to strength with attendances above target, and I'm sure this will only get better when I can't say Shirley Park, can I? When Claycross Active opens next month, because that's not far away. And so there is a lot more in that report. And like I did say at Cabinet last week, I'd say it again here, a big thank you to all the staff, the senior management team and all the service areas that are doing a great job and delivering against our council plan that we set out 2 years ago. So again, thank you. I put that on record, and that's me done.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Right, item 5. We have received no public questions, so I'll move straight on to item 6, which is the local government reorganisation. So I'm going to hand over to Leah Kim for an update. Over to you, Leah.
Swap batteries.
Just turn off if you take it back.
Hang on. Let's try that.
Oh, no.
Let's have a look.
Tried turning it off and on again, didn't I?
Starting. It's having a rest in anticipation.
It's got to be good now. You've had a big build-up.
Sorry about this. It's comments on. There we go. So, thank you, Chair. I think it's worthwhile just beginning with a little bit of a recap for people that are watching as well as. Members will recall that in January this year I brought a paper to Council setting out or creating a shared awareness of the then current situation and potential organisational threats that have been anticipated following the English Devolution White Paper publication in December. The report included a broad overview of the initial reaction at the time, which included Derbyshire County Council's published intention to submit early proposals to establish a single-tier authority covering Derbyshire's county boundaries, with City retaining its existing boundaries. And along with that, the 8 district and borough leaders confirming that they too would be making representation to government, asking that Derbyshire not be part of any priority programme, and expressing their collective view that the whole county unitary proposal is not the right approach for Derbyshire. Members will recall, though, I'm sure, that the vast majority of the paper that we brought in January were talking about the impact and potential threat from an organisational perspective that this presented to us and other councils. And that continues to be the case. I just want to take this opportunity to reassure Council that we continue to keep a close eye on those threats, and we're mitigating every day as far as possible, as we possibly can, on an ongoing basis. Following this, on 3rd of March this year, the leader presented an update paper to Council on LGR. And that paper informed Council that since our last update in January, the Council had now received the anticipated detailed letter from the Minister of State for Local Government and English Devolution on 5th of February, setting out the government's proposals in more detail. You'll probably recall from that update from the leader that the report highlighted 2 key dates. The first of these was 21st of March 2025, the date that the interim plan submissions would be required by. And as Councillor Barker explained at the meeting, this stage of the process would not be a decision-making stage. It was just a check-in point for government to, I guess, ascertain the proposals coming through and direct and give feedback to council submitting proposals to ensure that they were going in the right direction. The detail that was required for that interim plan submission was also included in that paper in March, so everybody in here knew what it was, I guess, that was required by the 21st. The second key date in the letter was 28th of November 2025, and that's the date for the deadline for the full proposals to be submitted, and again the criteria for which was also included in that paper on the 3rd of March. The paper to Council also informed members that we were aware of 2 proposals, now more firmed up, I guess, that were likely to be presented to MHCLG in March, and those being the Derbyshire County Council proposal, which essentially was a two unitary proposal
The city remaining as is, that would be one unitary covering approximately 266,000 population, and the rest of Derbyshire under another unitary covering a population of approximately 811,000. This proposal having no support from other councils in Derbyshire. All of the Derbyshire councils, 8 district and boroughs, including ourselves and the city, who had been collaborating on proposals that also created 2 unitary councils, but with a population sizes closer to the 500,000 guidance. The leader explained at that meeting that there was at that point no defined option to date, and that we, the district and boroughs and city, had been working with consultants, KPMG, to ensure that the size, scale, tax base and finances would be considered before narrowing options to a final one. The leader went on at that meeting to seek approval for our organisation to engage with others across the county to work out and come up with the best proposal now that we knew the parameters, and to seek approval for ourselves to be at the table and influencing the shape of these proposals, having an opportunity to ensure that whatever outcome is reached, it will have the greatest potential to serve our communities the best if our council are at that table. Work continued in that regard following the council meeting and during that week that followed, and leaders and officers from the 9 district and borough and city councils held umpteen meetings, including all-day workshops, an all-day workshop on the 5th of March, rigorously pursuing options to keep Derbyshire's historic boundaries whilst creating new unitary councils of the right scale to deliver the best possible services for our communities and meet the government's criteria. On the 6th of March, the leader emailed all councillors setting out the progress that was being made since our council meeting. The email update also explained that consensus had now been reached, that a proposal based on a north-south split represents the optimal balance between maintaining local identity and harnessing the efficiencies of scale of 2 larger unitary councils. This would be based on the existing geographies of the 8 district and borough councils as the key building blocks, alongside the geography of Derby City. 2 options within this proposal were to be explored further. The leader also explained that a report or interim plan document was currently being drafted detailing these benefits and providing additional data in respect of the interim proposal. Then on the 8th of March, the leader emailed all councillors attaching the interim proposal for local government reorganisation. And then on the 21st of March, the leader emailed again attaching the final version, which had just got a few tweaks from the one circulated previously. That was then sent to government, and on that day to meet the deadline, and this was from all districts and boroughs across Derbyshire. In addition to that submission from all districts and boroughs, Amber Valley Borough Council separately submitted an outline proposal for a 3 unitary option also. However, since then, and following more detailed work around this option more recently, this proposal is unlikely to now be pursued by Amber Valley. In addition to that, Derby City wrote a letter in support of the 2 unitary option described, but at that stage were unable to be a signatory on the submission. So that brings us to the present day and the next steps. So first of all, we've received that letter from government, that feedback letter, that check-in date from the 21st of March. We've now got it back end of last week, and I know that's been printed off, but it was also shared last Friday along with a summarised version. Just to be clear, this feedback is a single feedback document for all of those councils in Derbyshire. So all those scenarios, all those various submissions. So to be very clear, it responds directly to the Derbyshire District and Borough Council's interim plan for local government reorganisation, which includes ourselves. It responds to Amber Valley Borough Council's additional interim plan submission for a 3 unitary model. It responds to the letter from Derby City and the Derbyshire County Council's submission, interim plan. On the latter, clearly there's been county council elections recently, so I guess that's going to be a case of watch this space for now to see what the county council's position is on the currently submitted proposal. This may, of course, change now. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read the letter, but in summary, it reminds us that each council should submit a single proposal with a clear single option and geography for the whole area, so nobody can be left out of it. The final submission will need further detail and evidence on the outcomes expected for the whole area of any preferred model. The proposal should consider populations around 500,000, but flexibility is allowed if there's strong rationale to support it. The letter also suggests that indicative financial savings and efficiencies should be developed further. Consistent assumptions and data sets should be used across all proposals. Submissions should include a high-level financial assessment covering transition costs and overall forecast operating costs, and include analysis on expected transition and or disaggregation costs and potential efficiencies. It emphasises that detailed consideration of impacts on services such as social care, children's services, SEND and homelessness is required, and highlights that mitigation strategies for risk should also be included. It states the importance of effective collaboration between all councils and the wider East Midlands County Combined Authority, that there should be consideration of the implications and benefits of unitarisation for EMCA, and asks for further information on governance arrangements and interaction with EMCA, and emphasises that strong relationships and agreed ways of working, including data sharing, should be established. It also says that the final submission should include detailed plans for neighbourhood-based governance and community engagement, and views from local engagement and how they have been incorporated into the final proposal. And it should also provide early views on governance arrangements, elected member numbers, to ensure effective democratic representation. So now that we've got that, this feedback will be digested fully over the coming days and fed into the process. In terms of next steps, the 8 districts and boroughs continue to work on that proposal described for a 2 unitary model, a northern and southern unitary. The exact boundary yet to be determined, but it will either be Amber Valley in the north, Amber Valley in the south, or Amber Valley potentially split. But public consultation and engagement will help inform that decision further. In the interest of our communities, we're all working hard to ensure that the most fully informed business cases are being produced. And this means gathering lots and lots of data, irrespective of which proposal it ends up being. We're busy identifying and collecting this and looking to share this data with the county too, and vice versa. Fundamentally, these next few months will build on the interim plans by taking into account the feedback from government, adding more detail and testing the logic and data to create a full business case for change that is both robust and authentic. To help in this regard, districts and boroughs have collectively developed a programme governance structure for the development of the full business case and beyond. This includes a project coordination group, a range of key themed groups and strategic oversight groups. There will be lots of things to do during this next phase, including proposal development, financial analysis, the development of a supporting engagement plan with the public, and a variety of stakeholders on that proposal, amongst many other things. All of this effort will lead to a full business case development, and one that is aspirational, identifies opportunities for transformation, and the art of the possible thinking. But this business case also needs to recognise and include the challenges, the threats, the barriers to delivering such a model of local reorganisation, including how and if these can or cannot be mitigated. This needs to be warts and all, including realistic assumptions, transition costs and payback periods. We hope to be able to bring this back to Council in early autumn, before ultimately being submitted to MHCLG during November 2025. So what happens after November 2025? Well, as we understand it at present, following submission of the full proposals, the government will undertake its own consultation and have said that they will then decide sometime in spring next year, so May 2026 is when we expect to understand what the plan for Derbyshire is. Beyond this date, it's anticipated that the architecture for the new unitary model will then be established, a bit like a ghost or shadow organisation, with a view to get this new entity ultimately to a safe and legal position. In May 2027, a year after, that's when district elections would normally be happening. As it stands at the moment, these would be postponed and replaced by shadow elections into the new unitary. So, for the next few months beyond those elections and on the run-up to vesting date, which at the moment is said to be April 2028, existing members and shadow members will coexist at the same time, with existing district members focusing on the day-to-day business and shadow elected members on the safe and legal target for the new unitary council, with some overlap and collaboration, I'm sure. We will continue, myself and Nigel and others, leader and others, to keep council updated regularly and thoroughly as we progress. And with that, Chair, unless leader's got anything to say, I'm more than happy to take any questions.
Councillor Blanchard, have you got anything to add?
I'm pleased I let you do that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, isn't there? And it's not easy, is it, to go through all this process. The timescales are very tight. There's lots of implications to it. And again, I can't praise the senior management team, Matt, Jane and Lee, in their attitude towards this. As I say, it's a process that we're involved in. I don't think particularly want to be here, but we are, and I think we've got to try and influence things the best we can, Lee. And I respect the amount of work that's going off in the background. I'll do what I can politically, talking to the leaders and stuff, but it is an interesting time.
Councillor Dale.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Lee, for the very useful and comprehensive update. A few questions just from me. First was you referenced Amber Valley potentially being split, but I was to understand that no district or boroughs could change their boundaries this time round. So will Amber Valley doing the okey cokey sort of delay us even more? Because if they can't make that mind up, then presumably that involves a boundary review and all sorts to try and rectify that decision. So a bit more of information on that would be useful. The 77.6, rather not 76 million. How exactly is that being used? What's our allocation? How's it being used? I'm just because obviously they reference that ongoing costs you should meet your own, but this is sort of setup costs. I'm just acutely conscious that the government did say that they were not in the business of basically lining the back pockets of expensive consultants, which I fully agree with, and I think that's a sensible thing. But it's just, how do we ensure that this money isn't going to do just that? Because extra capacity is the thing that we really need, and how do you avoid it just going to expensive consultants? And then the third question was just in relation to shadow elections. And obviously I say this not as someone who likes the idea of deferring democracy, but it seems a bit of a nonsense to have a whole set of elections in 2027 to elect a bunch of people whose sole purposes is to then make themselves almost redundant a year later when they go back out to election, setting up the body. Why are we not nominating members from existing councils, the county and the districts and boroughs? You could do it on a politically proportionate basis or something like that, just to set up, just for that 1 year, to enable that setup, because it's going to be what, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds to then only have to spend the same amount the year after, and it's hard enough getting local residents interested in local elections, but then to have to campaign for an election that then you have to explain to them that they're only electing you for 1 year to set up something that they're probably fairly nonplussed about setting up in the first place. It's sort of, it just seems a very, very strange way of doing things, I suppose.
Lee, do you want to reply to that?
I can, Councillor.
Or do you want to take?
Oh, yeah, well, I've got it. Thank you, Chair. Yeah. So in terms of Amber Valley and the split, and can you do it? Yes, you can do it. But the question about would it take longer is yes, because you would have to involve Boundary Commission. I don't know how far that'll go at the moment. We're continuing to work through that. I suspect, who knows, maybe that conclusion's reached. But I think the general sense of feeling is that yes, there's a timescale, and there is a very tight programme for all of this, but we're also designing and reimagining something for perhaps the next 50 years, and if it was right to do that, then that should be the way, that should be what's pursued, rather than worrying too much about it in a timescale, I guess. But that's certainly not one for me to answer. But is it possible? Yes. Will it take longer? Yes. A bit more work involved. On the second question, the 7.6 million, unless Jane can tell me otherwise, we're still awaiting clarity on that. It's 7.6 million for an area, for everybody. How that's divvied up, who knows? I don't know yet. But that funding, again, Jane may clarify if it's different, but I think that funding is purely for business case development and getting you to submission. It's not about the costs of local government reorganisation per se. And on the third one, shadow elections, maybe there's a suggestion in there, I don't know, or a proposal or a proposition. I've not got an answer for that. I only know I only know what's printed and what's been communicated with us. So that period of time where there's yes, there's an election taking place, I guess it means district councillors will stay in for an extra year. So rather than 4 years, they'll have 5 years. But I don't know. Maybe that's something that might be proposed. Maybe someone else can make that decision in the future.
I don't know.
Hope that helps.
Thank you. Councillor Weatherall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's a question. It might be the way that I'm reading this, so some clarification if you can. It's asking for, right at the first paragraph and the overview, a clear single option and geography, and then a bit later on, for the area as a whole. Are we clear that the north and south option is something that is going to be acceptable, or are they talking about a single option for the whole of Derbyshire, including Derby City? It's just the way I'm reading it, I think, or understanding it. Thank you.
No. So what they don't want is an option that comes forward that leaves part of the area as a whole behind. So you can't say, oh, we're coming up with a unitary for 3/4 of it and forget them in the northwest, for instance. You can't do that. That's what they mean when they talk about an area as a whole. Each individual local authority at final submission stage has got to be narrowed down onto a single option, whatever that option is. So in our case, at this point in time, the position is, for all districts and boroughs, that a north and south, 2 unitaries of equal size, is our single proposal for the county as a whole. But it doesn't have to be a county-wide footprint unitary. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for that update, Lee. Councillor Thacker.
Thank you, Chair. Here we are with local government reorganisation. I'm going to resist the temptation to use the phrase, I told you so. So I won't, but I'm thinking it. But I agree with Councillor Barker's comments that it's best to be inside the tent rather than outside the tent. But it's Hobson's choice, really. And I feel that we're being channelled down one way or another. Just some points I want to make, not questions, really, to help maybe think about considerations for our survey or tiny form that we're going to be filling in. One, of course, is the historical and geographical considerations. I think Derbyshire is a county that is elongated. Everybody knows the geography of it, and it's not easy to try and make it homogenous for all these people in this geographical area to all be part of one unitary authority and a city, when people are used to working in clusters either through the north or the south. And the historical things include people asking me questions about what will happen to the old boroughs. For example, Chesterfield, that's been in place since Queen Elizabeth I's time, and the mayoralty and the civic elements of it. What will happen to all of that tradition? In terms of, you've mentioned education, we do have precedent for education being managed at second tier level. At one time, the education authority was the boroughs, for example. Some of us will remember that right up until 1974. And it seemed to work then. So we could perhaps look at some of the examples of how things worked at that time. Special educational needs and disabilities is something I'm particularly concerned about. I'm going to venture to suggest that the county model in Send hasn't worked. I'm just suggesting that. But of course, we've seen models elsewhere where different authorities can work together to produce Send services that are wider afield. So Western North Northamptonshire, two separate unitaries working together with one Send service. Another example is a service level agreement working across the whole of the North London boroughs, all working together, providing one Send service. So it can happen. I think it's back to what you're saying about services working in partnership within a footprint, and it can be within the footprint of an integrated care board. We do now have EMCA, whether we like it or we don't, but EMCA can have an overarching responsibility with certain services as well that can actually underpin the work of the unitary authorities as north and south. So I'm all in favour of the two-tier system as we have now, because I believe that's closer to our grassroots and enhances our representation. But if that's not to be, then the North and South Derbyshire models are the next best thing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thacker. Has everyone contributed who wants to contribute? Right, thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hancock. Came up last minute.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I actually echo what Councillor Thacker said. Every word of it, to be truthful. I think we are better off with the two-tier system, but this is probably the better alternative. But I think we need to look at the examples where this has been done, and all of the costs have massively spiralled beyond any of the projections. And I mean, when we're looking at the kind of 7 million that's being bandied about in here, we've had, typically, they've spiralled well over 30 million in the areas that have already been done. So I think when we're going back with the proposals and the costings, we need to allow for the things that we've already historically seen, Western North Northamptonshire, Dorset and Buckinghamshire, 3 examples, where they've massively gone over expectation. And we need to be realistic when we're putting those forwards.
Yeah, Councillor Barker.
Just on that, David, it's something that Jane, to be fair of, has been chewing my ear off since day one, since they started, that some of these figures are not realistic. And I know, Jane, you're involved. I don't know if you want to come in after me, Jane, to explain on the working groups or wherever behind the scene groups, really stressing this, that if we're going to put a proposal together, it's got to be on realistic figures, not some made up thingy that some consultants just picked out of thin air. And there are now examples of others that have gone through this process. David, you've just picked out a couple, and I think that's what you're working towards, Jane, isn't it? Trying to pick out what is realistic. And I think if 10, 20 years' time, it probably will save money, but in the short term, it's going to cost money. We're all realistic on that. You don't do something like this And I think what Lee said, it's something, you've got to have a vision for 50 years. You know, how long the districts and boroughs, 74 I think we were set up. So it's a 50-year thing, this. And what we don't want to do, and this is something that keeps being said, is rush it through for sake of hitting that November deadline and then coming up with something that's not the best option, just for sake. And it's frustrating at times because we're trying to look at all these options and we know it's going to be really, really difficult, Alex, isn't it? You know the issues that the county's got that are going to just passport down to the unitary. Not going to go away. We're still going to have to deal with all the send children and the rising in provisions and all that. So, and we've got to factor all that in. I don't know if you want to say it, Jane. I'll put you on the spot now.
Am I on? Yep.
You're on, Jane.
I've obviously drilled in well because that's pretty much what I would have said. So thanks for that, Councillor Barker. So, yeah, my view is very much that this shouldn't be rushed. My view is if we are doing it, we should be doing it properly. My personal view is that November doesn't allow us to do that, and there will have to be an element of assumptions. There will have to be an element of formulaic approach to it. It's just too big and too difficult to unpick in such a short space of time. That makes me somewhat nervous. I would rather take the time and do this properly if we are doing it. But as Councillor Barker quite rightly said, we are where we are with the process. What I can assure you is we are working very hard behind the scenes to try and get as much credibility into those numbers as we can. The Section 151 officers across the county are all working together with KPMG to try and do that. That's feeding back through to the Chief Execs group. And one of the difficulties that we have is the goalposts seem to keep moving. So we're working to a formulaic approach, and then we get feedback that says it needs to be very data-driven and it needs to be consistent across all the authorities. So it is quite challenging, but we will continue to update you, and we are doing what we can in that respect. But absolutely everything that Councillor Hancock said is absolutely true. I've been doing the same research, and the newly formed unitaries aren't performing as highly as some of the press would lead you to expect. So, you know, they're not going to. It stands to reason for all the reasons that Councillor Barker's just said. We've got challenges on adult social care, we've got challenges on SEND, we've got challenges on homelessness. None of those are going to go away just because we create one authority. They're still going to be hugely pressured. And as Councillor Thacker quite rightly said, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't think outside the box and we shouldn't be innovative. But they are huge pressures, and I think to expect them to dissipate within the first 3 years post creation of a unitary authority is a big ask. I think we need to be really, really sensible about payback periods. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jane. Councillor Dale.
Sorry to keep labouring the discussion. I just wondered, the key challenge, I guess, is whether we are allowed, through the savings that we do achieve through efficiencies, to reinvest that back in council services, or whether actually we are going to re-baseline what it costs to provide local government services, and the government are going to cream off what they need to cream off to pay for defence and all these other things. Because that's where the key challenge is. If we can make the efficiencies to fund those services better than they are currently funded, which is predominantly the main challenge with them, that its demand is too high and we're not able to fund them appropriately, then it may help to tackle some of those issues. But if they're going to re-baseline us, and I suppose then the question is, if they are going to re-baseline us, are we not better overstating some of the impact of those costs and our predictions on those costs moving forward and in the future?
You can have a go.
Yes, if you can come back on that, Jane, please.
I'll have a go. That's exactly where I am. So we do have to be incredibly careful, because what I don't want to happen is to get into a bidding war on different propositions and different bids, because if we all start outbidding each other because we can all make more savings, we could exactly end up in that position whereby we have a multi-year settlement this year, 26/7, 3 years, local government organisation. The next multi-year settlement will be based on the new unitary authorities, and that baseline level's just dropped because we've all said that we can make all of these savings. So I think we need to be really careful about that.
Right, okay.
I just want to pick up and emphasise that point that Jane's just made about competitiveness, because this surely can't be a competition. This surely can't be something that ours is better than yours, whichever way you slice it and dice it. So there's going to have to be a proper look from central government and MHCLG to see through some of that if we end up in that position. Because at the end of all of this, and what leaders said in our paper in March, this is about those communities that we're all here serving, you're all elected to serve, and people will be in the future. It's not about whose proposal looks best on a glossy document. It's got to be anchored, and we're pushing for that. And this emphasises what Nigel said, what the leader said in March. We're better at the table, because I can categorically reassure our members here today that where we are today is we're much better off than had we not been involved, because I can see the level of change and significant change that's occurred from various officers being part of that process, because we're saying things like, no, let's be realistic. 2 years is too quick. 2 years under any circumstance in an already established organisation like ours to get transformational change in one service area to get your payback, that's really quick. But if you think in 10 years, and why don't we think about 10 years? If this is going to be around for 50 years, what's wrong with talking about 10 years' time and getting the right model? So I don't know what difference the elections had at county, but what I do know as an officer, if we can get to a single proposition for Derbyshire, that is the best opportunity we've got to have a full, truly realistic business case going forward to central government, because you'll no longer be in a competitive environment, you'll be in a realistic one. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you everyone who's come in on that debate. It's been interesting. Right, we'll now move on to item 7, which is the Auditor's Annual Report 23-24. So I will pass over to Councillor Pat Kerry to introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair. This document presents the Auditor's Annual Report for the year 23-24, prepared by the Council's external auditors, Fulvis Mazar. The annual report aims to provide the Council with an overview of the annual audit conducted by that firm, presenting the opinion on the financial statements and value for money arrangements. I am pleased to report that once again, Mazars have provided an unqualified audit opinion with no matters of concern identified. The value for money audit, which looks at our arrangements for financial sustainability, governance and improving the economic efficiency and effectiveness, did not identify any recommendations or risks of significant weaknesses. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Jane and her team for all the hard work they undertake, often unnoticed, in producing these accounts each year, working to achieve this positive outcome and, most importantly, the independence assurance that it brings to the Council. Move to the recommendations, Chair, that the Council considers and notes the report attached. I move that we do so, Chair.
I think that.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on this? Right then, members, if nobody wishes to speak, we're going to have to vote on the screens for this. Right, thank you, members. That's been unanimously approved. Right, we now move on to item 8. Questions from members. I now invite Councillor Ross Shipman to put his question to Councillor Steve Pickering.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a quick one. in the last year, how many reports of fly tipping have been logged in with North East Derbyshire District Council, and of those, how many have had fines issued against them?
Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question, Councillor Shipman. The information I've got for you this afternoon is taken from the data we report to government on that for 24-25. In that period, there were 588 fly tipping incidents, and out of those, 87 were reported as containing evidence, and so were investigated. And of those, we ended up in that period with 5 prosecutions, 26 fixed penalty notices issued, and 3 failure to produce documents for business waste in total. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pickering. Councillor Shipman, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Chair, thank you. Can you tell me how many of those we've got added evidence for, how many of those have we exercised the powers that we've got to confiscate vehicles and so on, rather than just the fines?
Councillor Pickering.
Okay, thank you. I mean, out of the 87 that were investigated, obviously some of the evidence wasn't substantial enough to use. You know, it just wasn't things that we can use. So where evidence was produced that we could use, all the figures I've given you resulted in either fixed penalty notices or prosecutions. The prosecutions are for more serious cases, and the rest were fixed penalty notices.
I think expanded on that. Right, that concludes the questions for today. We now move on to item 9, which is motions. And for a change, we haven't received any motions. Everybody must be sending them to scrutiny committee. So we now move on to item 10, urgent business. I have no urgent business, so that concludes today's meeting, and I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Thank you.
Hold on, Lou.